All right, we're on the air. Hello, anyone out there? This is my first live solo, and I have Marilyn in the back. So, hello, and I hope we get a few viewers so we can um, get going with this little story. Um, I don't know if I have anyone watching yet, but I will post a comment or two, which I haven't had to do on my computer yet. All right. Oh, I do see Joel. Okay, good. I got somebody to talk to. This is good. I don't need many. I just need a few people to talk to. This is the first time I have done this. I've put up a few clunky videos just to get used to doing that and unedited videos. This will be my first actual live, so hopefully we get a few people on to uh, answer comments and say hi to. So Joel, it, is Duncan live or is it Memorex? So this time it's not Memorex. I remember that back in the 70s. Uh, yeah, the Memorex is the first thing to go. Yeah. Anyway, hi Joel. So yeah, I'm gonna let a few minutes sort of happen in here. We can chat for a bit, and hopefully get a few extra people on. But if not, maybe they'll watch later. I know they just got off from watching Marilyn, and I know she's done a good job trying to help me get a start here. But anyway, I'm gonna act like there's 20 people here, so I don't just sit here saying nothing. That would be pointless. Um, So yeah, I decided to jump in. Oh, hello, we have Tammy. So now we have more than one person. That's terrific. Good to see you. This is a funny feeling. I haven't sat here myself yet. I've done a couple of shared streams with people, but this is good. Um, so yeah, I wanted to jump in and get started. I just got out of the hospital yesterday and came back after some fairly minor surgery, and that was a very interesting experience. What happened was, I just turned 65 this year and the end of January, and immediately hit some old goat issues and wound up with some prostate trouble and being on a catheter for almost 2 months, which was kind of subdued me for a bit. So I was doing a few little recordings just to get some information out, but it gave me actually a huge amount of time to think and kind of dig down into various research. And as you're probably aware, I've really done a deep dive into the NDE thing, which I'm not going to talk a lot about, but it's been extremely interesting and enlightening. And even in the hospital, what made the hospital experience really bizarre and interesting was it became an illustration to me about the whole cult experience and the idea of submitting control of yourself to somebody. Because in the situation I was in, I had to go in there Wednesday morning and be there for 7:30, and it's a very strange feeling. And I haven't been through this in many years, fortunately, where you go under general anesthesia. And what was weird is when you go in there, you've got to sign a million documents, you've got to fill out forms and talk to people, and they keep grilling you with the wanting to know your name and your birth date and your address, and just keep hitting you with these questions over and over. To It almost seems hypnotic, but they want to make sure. I realize it's for their protection. They don't want to screw up. They got to make sure they got the right patient in the right place at the right time and for the right procedure. So they're quite careful to not mess that up, which I really appreciate. And I felt like I was in really good hands at every step of the process. So, but the really bizarre part was uh, being basically in a hospital bed, getting wheeled into an OR, having IVs and all these things hooked up to you. And then there's a point where a guy says, "Okay, you're ready." And you're like laying there. You don't have any control over your life at that point. You basically are just, you've given them your consent, you've signed a bunch of paperwork, they've read you all the possible things that could happen to you, and you're like, well, I don't have a choice. It's either basically this or eventual death, which I wasn't interested in. So I'm like, okay, go for it. So he shoots a shot of something into the IV inlet there, that little port, and 10 minutes go by, and there's people are scrambling around the OR, and there's a team of about 8 people doing their scrubbing up and different things. And I'm like, kind of like, whoa, all these people are here gathered up to help me out and doing something I don't know how to do. I don't know, I read up on what they're going to do, but I didn't want to get too far into it because I'm not a medically courageous person. I freak out. So the interesting part was, after about 10 minutes, they're like, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I was still coherent at that point. And then, all right, hit him again. So he shoots another shot in there. And then literally the next thing I know, I'm hearing this loud voice waking me up. Like I had just gone into the void for 45 minutes or whatever it took, or an hour. And then I'm hearing this voice jarring me out of it. And I'm like, oh, hey, okay. And then they're like, oh, okay, it's all done. You're all set. And I'm like, feeling like I'm floating because, you're still dopey on gas and whatever they were giving me. I'm allergic to morphine, so I didn't let them give me that. But whatever they gave me worked. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, it's over. Thank God. Well, it's not really over. I've got the recovery side of it and making sure that everything actually worked. But anyway, I'm telling you that whole story just because that's been my life for the couple of days. And the whole idea of just surrendering yourself to the control of other people, and that's just your body. You know what I mean? It's not going to last forever, but that's your body. And then it made a perfect segue into what I want to talk about today, which I will take a short break to acknowledge people that are on here before I dive into that. But anyway, I feel reasonably good, not perfect yet, but vastly better than I did. And limping along for 2 months with a catheter and the usual things associated with that really limit your mobility. Even though I snuck out and went skiing a few times, it wasn't risk free, and it wasn't quite as much fun as it should have been, but it kept me sane. So anyway, I've got Joel on here, and Tammy, thank you for joining in. Me, the stay still guy. Well, I've stayed still quite a bit the last couple of months. I'm hoping to not have to do that too much longer. So yeah, I think Joel's saying I'm an old geezer myself. I know what you're going through. Yeah. Yeah, all those forms that you sign. So yeah, that was really a trippy experience, and it sort of grounds you. Like you really think about, where you're going in life. You're kind of forced to take stock of where you're at because, we're getting older, and there's a lot more time behind me than I had probably at this point on the earth. So, Marilyn and I am getting more daring. I never used to think a cruise would be a good idea. I'm like, let's go for it. Let's just do stuff because, you only have a limited amount of time. And now we're at an age where if I want to do anything, I need to do it soon. So I've got some fun projects ahead of me just based on the fact that I now can take time to do them. So anyway, Hun, if you want to put up that first little illustration, because it reminded me, like this whole hospital thing, you're basically signing your life away in a sense of you're taking a risk, and the doctors, they're doing their best. They're willing to take a risk on my behalf of doing something that might or might not work. And can you get the other one up, the Sea Org one? That one sort of follows it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I signed away, the various waivers. They warned me, oh, this could sterilize you. You could be you wouldn't have kids after this. I'm like, hey, I got 3 already. I'm good. I don't want to start back at the diaper stage again. Thank you. I'm not worrying about that. And numerous other ones. This could go wrong and that could go wrong. But here you go. So I pulled this up this morning as I was taking some notes down, and this was the billion-year contract. I got Wikipedia. There's a whole lot of stuff about Scientology and the Sea Org and everything. I just wanted to see an actual copy of this so I could put it up. But here's somebody willing to make a commitment to sign on a dotted line for a billion-year contract for an organization run by a crackpot sci-fi writer that created a false religion. Here's a person that's willingly signing over their eternal, a billion years of their life, and probably it would have to account for like millions of other lives to fulfill a billion-year contract. That's pretty fucked up. I hope I don't. I'm not getting monetized anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter if I swear a little bit. But the idea of people being naive enough or duped enough to actually be willing to sign this thing and commit themselves to a billion years under some false religion or some crackpot. And then the other illustration, Han, if you want to put that up, was simply another thing. When I was a kid, my mom used to have these marionettes, and we'd play with them, and they were little figures like this. She actually had some, I don't know what, I forget the name of them. They were famous, like kind of a Charlie Chaplin type thing, but these little marionettes. So I still have one or two of them in the attic that are kind of in crumbled in ruins now. I don't think they could be restored, but when we play with them, it illustrates to me like somebody gives themselves over to the control of a cult leader, and now they're like this poor woman. Like you see, she's dangling by a bunch of strings, and can be jerked around and made to do whatever by Elron or Miscavige or whoever might be over her, whatever person ruling over her in the Sea Org. So you've signed the billion-year contract. Now you're this marionette dangling from a bunch of strings, and you're being jerked around. You've given up control of your life. So what I want to get into, let me see if I got any more comments here. Yeah, so people are advising me to stay still and be good, and I'm actually trying to. I really don't want to do anything to re-injure myself and end up in a position where I would have to go back. Trust me, it's the last thing I want to do. So I'm very eager to comply with any request to not have to go back in there. So they said don't lift anything over 10 pounds. So I was like automatically just grabbing up things that weigh more than that because it's just habit. Now, okay, I got to make sure I don't mess myself up. Tammy, anytime I've ever had to go under for surgery has been 100% trusting that the doctor knew what they were doing. All would be perfect. It always has. Had more than one eye surgery. Yeah. I mean, I was getting a little freaky about it, but somehow I was able to stay above. I felt like the last couple of months are sort of a surreal blur of focusing on other things so that I wouldn't go down into a rabbit hole in my mind, because I used to freak out, worry about these things. Now I'm like, well, all I got to do is just trust and believe that I'll be okay. And, the doctor was highly recommended and good, and I trusted him, and everybody along the way was really good. I didn't run into one person that gave me a bad vibe the whole time. I'm like, okay, somebody's with me in this thing. So, it's gone as well as it could have. They made it as pleasant as it could have. So anyway, I'll move ahead a little bit with this basic idea of control. Because my first thought about this when I was thinking about doing this live was the idea of like we're in the SPTV movement and we're in this cult recovery thing. And for me, it's sort of like, okay, we were in a different cult. We got out quite a while ago. We had quite a bit of time to kind of recover and research cults and think about it, Marilyn and I. So I feel like we had enough time to go by to really get far enough removed from it. So it's not like we're not in that raw stage. I know some of the second, third gens and people coming out of Scientology and other cults are so recently out, they haven't had time to process everything. And it takes some time and thinking. So I kind of wanted to summarize some thoughts I've had because a few of the things that I'm going to allude to come out of my NDE study, which is near-death experiences. And I got somehow, this was going back a couple of years, I watched a Netflix documentary, and there was a woman that had been whitewater rafting and went over a falls and got trapped underwater and died and left her body and did all this stuff. And it was fascinating because she came back completely lucid and having been changed by the experience. And then I began to look into more of these experiences, and they seemed, many hundreds and hundreds of them, very, very consistent in terms of what these people experienced and encountered. And many of them went over to the other side and, met relatives and spirit guides and angels and all these things that sound crazy. But the more of them I listened to, the more credible it all became, until I realized that this is actually, there's enough cases of this happening to really represent a scientific sampling of a pretty large size. And there were a lot of proofs that I've gotten into more on some of the other videos I did that really substantiate the truth of this. And then there's these great takeaways. Like people have gone to the other side, they usually, in fact, pretty much all of them experience this tremendous sense of the fact they're loved and accepted, they're not judged, and that they're here. This is a learning experience over here, and that this is a tough planet to learn from and live on, and that we are given free will here. And there's a lot of things that are wrong that have come out of that because of people's ignorance mostly. And but on the other side, everything is, we don't take any of this dark stuff with us that happens here, including, and this is why I mentioned that, is the occult experiences that many have been through are really a product of the fact that people have free will. And if they give it up to the wrong people, they can come under terrible control. And on the other side, the primary motivation is love, and the love motive is so powerful. And it's also pretty much universally agreed to by people that have been over there, that we're all connected, that we really are all one, and that we're all expressions of the creative power, source, God, whatever you want to call him, and that we're connected, and all communication on the other side is telepathic. And knowledge, it's almost like we are given infinite knowledge over there, like literally can tap into, enormous amount of wisdom and knowledge about things. And people that have come back from these experiences relate, they come back changed, and their motivation has changed. Materialism is nothing, like none of us, I mean, we can say it and acknowledge it, but nobody's going to leave here with anything. No matter if you could have $1 billion in the bank, you could have the biggest house, you could have yachts and everything else, you're not taking any of it with you. Materialism is an illusion, and motives like greed and acquisition of a lot of things or whatever, it's empty, because it's a false promise. You can't take any of it with you, and we're eternal. The other takeaway is people say there is no death. This is part of an ongoing series of experiences that we're going to have, and that there's no death. This isn't the end of it, which is, I find reassuring, because it's pretty much eliminated my fear of death. It's like, okay, you're not here, but Scientology was a total bastardization of, a twisted soup of different bits and pieces of philosophies and religions and a bunch of things that L. Ron threw together, but it doesn't represent the ultimate reality. But anyway, I'm going on a bit of a tangent. I'll try to get back on track. Let me just check see what else we have going on here. Okay, Maya, LOL, I haven't always been that lucky with my surgeries, but it was okay in the end. Mach, I always say Mach 1 because I can't pronounce that name. The last shirt doesn't have pockets. Okay, I don't know what that refers to. But anyway, I'm hoping I'm seeing any and all of the chat here. Because I haven't done this before. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing. But anyway, I'll continue. Marilyn will probably let me know if I go way off track anywhere. But so anyway, part of what I wanted to say here was the motivation that cults use is very dark and terrible. And it starts with basically a false promise. Like here's where we go wrong. Some people were born into the Sea Org. They're born into a cult, so they have no choice. You're a little kid. You don't have a choice. So it's not like you submitted and signed a $1 billion contract. When you're a little kid born into something, that's all you know. And I think of Serge Obolensky, I think his name is, that had born into the Sea Org and never saw the outside world or real life, and he got abused and injured, and basically the poor guy didn't have a shot in the dark because he started out under the control of this cult, whereas other people willfully signed, but below an age where I would say a person is able to make such a decision. Like they have kids, 6-year-old kids signing this $1 billion contract. They're not qualified to make a decision. Even they say your brain isn't developed till 26 or 27. So even 18-year-olds signing their life away don't really know what they're doing yet. So it's all insanity. But the idea that you've lost your free will, like the NDE world, having a free will emphasizes a really big thing. Like the Creator created us to be like Him, ultimately, is the takeaway. And even the Bible, Jesus quoted Psalm 82 saying, you are gods, you're all sons of God. That's what you're created to be. Like we're all meant to be able to rise to a level of having this kind of understanding. And this morning it occurred to me, suddenly it seemed like one of these obvious truths, but like if you walk up to a locked door and you want to get through it and you produce the proper key and put it in the lock, you get the door open, you get to go in. And if you're in your computer and asks for a password, if you don't give it the right password, if you're one letter off, it locks you out. You can't get in, you can't do anything, you can't use it. And even like say there's something wrong with your car and you don't know how to fix it, but you watch a right YouTube video, you can figure out how to replace the door lock or whatever's wrong with it and get it fixed. So you move on and it lets you proceed with your life. But our minds are so enormously complicated that on a huge scale, like to figure out how to live and not get sucked under or buy into untruths and get taken control of requires an infinitely large amount of knowledge and wisdom. So that's sort of the thing that we need. Like if we lack wisdom, it's very hard to navigate life without making terrible mistakes and getting sucked down into something that's not right. So, so part of the deal with the cult mentality is, from my perspective now, having watched all these NDE videos and everything, is like, wait a minute. One of the huge problems with the cult thing is the motivation is implicitly really wrong. It's almost all totally negative. You get pulled in with a lie, like you're joining this great force that's going to clear the planet. So it's almost like you're being tasked with being part of like the salvation of the world, which is behind a lot of religions. And the promise of Christianity and everything else is like, we're going to save you from whatever dire fate might otherwise happen to you. And so in the Sea Org, like clearing a planet, like, okay, somehow the planet's all screwed up and people are screwed up and we got to clear them all, make them all perfect in some way. I mean, I'm not bashing religions in general, because I see a lot of truths that people have arrived at a lot of truth by a lot of searching over the years, and mostly in an honest way. Like, say, Christianity or other religions are basically a product of people trying to figure out life. So they've got some of it right, and some of it not right. But something like the Scientology was a complete bullshit lie and just a mess. Just a ridiculous fictional creation from the get-go. So it had nothing to offer. In fact, what LRH did, you go from just a false promise to the false doctrines and all these books and tapes and all this business. So you've completely codified this false stuff. And LRH was, I've read some of the stuff in the past stuff that we watched SPTV, basically him reaffirming that his own stuff was correct. And every year he put out a new report saying how correct all of his previous bullshit was, and how it had been correct, and now it's even more correct, and now we're correcting it to make it even more correct. Therefore, you can't possibly question or disagree with it. So your whole mind is just bypassed and shut down. So you've been sucked in with a false promise. You've been pumped full of false doctrine. And then here's the other thing. A big takeaway to me, any legit religion or the NDE thing, is these people come back saying, they were just so overwhelmed with the love they experienced on the other side, and that became the driving motive. And most of them, it was so peaceful and beautiful over there, they didn't want to come back. And in some cases, they were shown what would happen if they didn't come back, kind of like the It's a Wonderful Life thing. Like, if you had kids or pets or a wife or husband or whatever back here, and you could see that they were going to be floundering or have a bad life without you, a lot of people would voluntarily go back based on the love they have now for these people, and they're willing to go through what would be the equivalent of suffering in some sense, just to come back here to finish out a life that's really rough, compared to the other side. So love is basically the legit motive that drives people to want to do what's right. And it opened my eyes to the fact that even myself, I'm just starting to figure this stuff out and realize that a lot of my life when I was younger, I spent in fear of things. And the fear is probably the most dire controlling force there is. And it's the opposite of love, because even the Bible says perfect love casts out fear. So basically there's two driving motives, two categories. One is the love category, which is all the positive motivations, like desire to help other people and show kindness and forgive and be patient and invest your time in other people, and all that stems to me out of love. Like, love is a big basket that has all these things in it. And then cults and other control groups use fear and the negative spectrum. Like, you think of it, interrogating people, micromanaging them, not letting them question anything, not wanting them to actually develop any wisdom of their own, which would give them control. No trust, sec checks, abuse, keeping people intimidated, afraid, extorting what you want out of them, threatening them. How many people, all of us that have been in any type of cult situation, gaslighting, everything, we've been kept basically in fear. And that's how a cult will control you. If you don't do this, then this. If you do this, then this. It's constantly the threats. You're being watched and surveilled and micromanaged and threatened with the RPF and, put in solitary confinement. And it's like all this kind of awful stuff that's used to keep you down and keep you from exerting your own free will. So what I want to do now is just shift the emphasis a little bit to the idea that if we want to get out of the cult mindset and recover, like I see one thing that's sort of sad, and I see this on SBTV all the time, is how many people are still mired in victimhood. And it's like, yeah, we were victims, but how do we get out of that? Like, you don't want to be wearing this placard that says, I've been abused, I've been beaten, and gone through all this terrible shit, because that's holding you back from going forward. And it's keeping you, it's like chains that are still hooking you, holding you down. And if you're in depression and misery and having to take drugs and use all these crutches, it's like we've all had to do it, including me. Like when I was younger, I was in fear of things, and navigating life was tough. I didn't have much wisdom to work with or anything. So you're turning to alcohol or drugs or whatever medication you can use to kind of ease your pain. And then I'm like, there's a way out of this. It's not easy, understanding how all this stuff works and replacing the bad motivation to me is like a key thing. Like if you realize you've been living in fear all your life or not trusting people, you've just got this conditioning. You've been a victim. Now you can't trust anybody. It's very hard to trust somebody you've been abused and victimized, but like, how do you get out of that? At some point you've got to connect. And another illusion, Tamber June. Hi, I just see you popped up on here. Excellent. Welcome. I'm hoping anybody that gets into this late has time to rewatch the beginning, because I'm kind of laying groundwork. But I would say Maya, aka Allison Art Supply, the real truth no one will know for sure until the day we die. Kind of true. Yeah, it's totally true. I mean, I feel like I'm seeking and learning a little as I go along, just trying to share what I turn up, because I think it helps. It's helping me. Let's put it this way: it's helping me get free of some crap I've been held back by. So I'm hoping to pass some of that along. So it says, Maya says, right, your whole reality is turned upside down. Regular religion is for the most part unaware of how society works. And yeah, a lot of religion, you're looking back, like this is stuff that was written and formulated hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. There's been a lot that's happened since then. I've broken out of that box. I grew up pretty much on a church pew in a Methodist church, and I absorbed a lot of Christianity. And a lot of it's actually consistent with the NDE things that have been revealed. But I feel like, there's a lot more information out there now. So even a scientific person will be willing to keep changing their attitudes and ideas based on new information coming in. So I feel like if I take, what I can hold on to from old information and add it to what I've been learning lately, it's really helpful. Tammy M, I've never been in a cult, and the lies told I cannot imagine. But we've all been lied to by someone in our lives as children. Examples: Santa, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, devastated. Yeah, so you dupe somebody as a little kid into believing something, and then later, that was just a story. So then, people try to convince you of a religious figure or some other thing. You're like, I've been duped before. I'm not buying it. Sorry. So, forget exactly where I just left off. I'll try to get back in here. But so the takeaways from the NDE thing about the motive. Okay, I know what I was going to touch on. So people that have had the near-death experiences, everybody says, well, we're connected. We're all one. And I buy into that, because I'm like, yeah, we are all one. Even Jesus said, do unto others so you'd have them do unto you. And most of the people, a lot, I wouldn't say all of them, but not everybody experiences the same thing if they have a near-death experience. But many, many of them will say they had a life review, in which case they would basically go through their whole life, and what would seem like it would seem on the other side like weeks, months, years, days, to go through this life review, re-experiencing their whole life is almost like a movie playing in high speed, and seeing how their life impacted other people's lives, how what they did impacted others. And there's no time on the other side. It's only present moment. Everything, past, future, and present are all like equally accessible. And it's very strange. I know this is trippy stuff, but the idea that they would be able to see their whole life and how they impacted other people. So it's almost like you see your connectedness. And even nature, people come back from the other side and say their pets were there. The beauty is ridiculous and incredible. The nature is amazing over there. The colors, the sounds, everything's amazing. And our bodies limit what we can perceive. But I mean, the whole idea is, it sounds funny, but Native Americans and different religions, people accept the idea we're all connected. For some reason, the Western versions of religion and Christianity tend to want to just say, well, there's just this life only, then you're dead. And this is all there is. There's nothing more, which I no longer believe. I mean, you believe when you're young, you kind of believe what you're told. And now with the information available, I've totally adopted a different attitude. But to me, the connectedness is such a key feature, because now I feel like literally within the last year, I've gone over to this point where everybody I talk to and meet anywhere, I feel like we're connected. We're connected. What I do, how I treat you matters. Me accumulating a lot of money or doing some great thing, people that are famous and all, that's okay for them. That maybe that's their path through life. I'm not judging them. I'm not here to judge them. I'm here to learn. So it's like we're all connected. I look at everybody like simple, very preposterously simple concepts, like just the golden rule of, doing unto others, you have them do unto you. What you do to others, you're doing to yourself. So that's kind of how I look at life now. What you do to your pet, if you're nice to your pet, you're being nice to yourself. You're all connected. But here, so the reason I'm making that point is simply like the whole cult thing is, it's like a divide and conquer, isolation, solitary confinement, RPF, punishing people by isolating and separating and dividing. And now I see, even on a different scale, like politically or nationally or anything, the idea of dividing and separating and putting people in boxes and not seeing them as an extension of yourself or just like you is a huge mistake. That's why we're in the mess we're in now. We don't realize that we are all connected, and that what you do to the other guy, you're doing to yourself. It's like if we took what Jesus said seriously, he said, basically do unto others as you have them do unto you. That is the sum of the law and the prophets. In other words, the entire Old Testament was fulfilled in one little tiny sentence. If that's all we got, and we lived by that one rule, bam, we wouldn't need anything else in terms of religion. But how many people, we think that's too simple, so we got to complicate things and write volumes and volumes of information and make people obey rules and go through rituals and all this crap. It's all garbage by comparison to this one basic little statement. So anyway, end of that rant. So to get out of the cult mindset, I'll switch my emphasis over to the positive motives after I check in and see who's here and what else has been said. Yeah, we could be neighbors for all I know, Maya. Mach 1, we didn't have Santa either. Our version was an angel. Okay. Joe DeCepo, free as an eagle. I've never had an NDE, but I do feel we are all connected. We're all part of an ecosystem. None of us could live without farmers. Yeah, I totally agree. We're all, we impact each other. That's one of the things. Yeah, we all impact each other in ways we're not even aware of. It's like we're kind of a collective, and everything any of us do, even thoughts have power. Like on the other side, people come back and say, even your thoughts have power and they manifest in different ways. So it's not like what you do and think doesn't matter. It actually, things do matter. Tammy M. Some people have experienced the universal consciousness, which is where we are all connected using. Yeah, it's funny to me. It's like people have used psychedelics and experienced things like this. I can't really make a judgment about that. Like I did actually get talked into trying mushrooms once, but I got crazy and ranted all night. I don't know what else it did for me, but it was an interesting experience. Tamber June, I treat other ways I want to be treated, respected. Yeah, there's a golden rule in action. That's what I try to do. Maya, I believe the key is love. That's absolutely right. That's the huge takeaway. That's the biggest takeaway. I mean, love is basically a constructive, creative force, and that's what we want to be motivated by. That's a big part of this. What I wanted to convey today with this is simply that love as the driving motive is the one motive that will make us willing to do what will benefit other people or ourselves. And part of that too, and I realize this is a healing thing for anyone that's come out of a cult. It's very hard to love yourself if you've been abused or made to feel bad about yourself or been shamed a lot, because it's like if you've gone through any of that stuff that made you feel really small and ashamed and powerless and being abused, it just minimizes your self-esteem and your self-image and everything, and come out of that is difficult. So it's hard to love other people if you don't love yourself. And I used to, I had to tell my younger son Carter one time, I was like, one of the big takeaways I had, like he used to beat himself up all the time about things. Oh, I'm this and I'm that. And he was born with a cleft lip and he looked funny and he got picked on. It's like, damn it. It's like there's nobody out there that's better than you. And, you've got to love, basically the idea is like you got to love and accept yourself as you are, and you don't beating yourself up is not going to make you a better person. Some people come under that impression, well, if I beat myself up enough, then I'll be a better person. I can make myself be better. That's false thinking. Totally. It's not love. Love will make you feel like a better person and be willing to try and give you hope. Whereas, any kind of negative motivation, especially like occult motivation, is threats and fear and intimidation. And what will happen if you don't do a thing, or if you screw up in a little way and you get beaten up for it, that totally suppresses your growth and your hope and everything. So trading out those negative motives and saying, you know what, I'm okay. I'm the way I was made. I'm like going to go ahead with my life and do the best I can with what I got left. I'm not perfect. I may have screwed up terribly. You got to forgive yourself. You got to love yourself and just say, hey, I'm no worse than the next guy. Because that's what I told Carter. I was talking to myself at the same time. I said, you know what? I look around me and there's people that have money and success and good jobs, and they seem to like themselves, and they're assholes. And I'm no more of an asshole than they are. In fact, they don't even care that they're assholes. They abuse people and they still seem to be prospering. So that doesn't seem right to me. Why are they better than us? Why should they succeed and us not? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, just forgive yourself. You've screwed up. Okay. Do you want to do better? Then okay, drop the past, move on. Don't beat yourself up. It won't do you any good. It didn't work for me and I did for years. So at some point you just look in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm okay. I want to do well. I want to do better. I'm just going to drop all this crap and move ahead. So, not being motivated by the negative. Like if you're motivated by love, you're going to be seeing other people and looking for opportunities to help them. And even now I've made a thing. It's sort of funny, like throughout this whole process of going to the hospital, dealing with doctors for 2 months, going in and out, doing catheters and, attempting to get things working that weren't working, finally having to submit to surgery. I thank every person along the way. I said, you know what, I'm really glad you're here. I'm glad you've given your life to helping people out and doing this stuff, because what would I do? I wouldn't want to do what you're doing, but I'm damn glad you're doing it. And I'm glad you got good at it, so I can trust you to help me out. If it weren't for people like, these guys, I'd be dead several times over by now. So I'm grateful. But gratitude is to me an expression of love. It's like making other people realize they're valuable. That's a positive, rather than being beaten down because of your mistakes or whatever bullshit, like in Scientology, all this make work they have people do that doesn't really add up to anything. In the end, what good does writing up all these freaking reports about what other people are doing wrong? What good in the end is that doing anybody? I mean, honestly, surveilling people and videoing people and doing all this crap so that you can condemn them and call them on the carpet for, little bullshit nonsense, that what they're not doing in Scientology, making people swab the decks and crawl around the bilge to punish them. It's not building up their soul or spirit. It's not benefiting them and making them better people. It's utter bullshit. It's an entire waste of their time. So all these people that think they're saving the planet and clearing the planet they were having their time wasted. They're being utterly wasted. And then people getting abused in there. It's utter bullshit. But it's like almost like you got to just wash your hands of that shit and just say, you know what, I'm taking my life back. I'm taking my will back. I'm going to start, realizing that. Oh, you have comments in the start section. Oh, pardon me. I've realized I'm getting on a rant here. Used to doing these sort of clunky videos myself where I'm not going to edit, so I just keep barreling ahead and blatting everything out without anybody to answer to. Okay, there's one. Oh, Kelly is on here. Hello. So Tamper June saying, I live by the golden rule. Good. See you, totally cool. Kelly, hey, Duncan, welcome back. Wishing you a speedy recovery. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, that was kind of a rough ride. I'm, not totally comfortable yet, but I'm getting there and things are functioning properly now. So I'm happy about that. So Tim, yeah, some people have experienced the universal consciousness, which is where we are all connected. Yeah. Oh, that was the one about the mushrooms and everything. New comments. Let me see. I don't want to ignore anybody. Forgive me if I have. Yeah, I'm on a ramble. Somebody's saying, okay. Maya, I believe there is more than this, a place most people's brains cannot access, and I believe animals can. Their consciousness can receive. You know what? You're right. Animals perceive things we don't. I see it even in our critters. They sense things. They really do. Like even in me packing up to go to the hospital or something like that, they get rattled and they're unnerved and they know something's up. The animals, they're smart. They definitely are smart. Maya, Duncan's on a ramble. Guilty as charged. You got on a rant like this, I'm cranked up with the coffee, and I don't like silence and dead time. So, being that I'm the only one talking, I got to keep talking a little bit. uh, Joe DeCepo saying hi to Maryland. Mock, it's not over till it's over. You can always learn, evolve, and move on from not having. Yeah, exactly. We're all in different places. That's the way I see it. We're all in different places. And we're all learning and evolving. And it's okay. Like even, the NDE world, people say, you know what? We get worried about things over here. It's all happening according to plan. Like literally, we're all here to learn, and where things are is right where they're supposed to be, because the things are basically where they are because of free will and what people are doing with their free will on this planet. And we're all interacting and we're all learning from one another. We're all learning our own experiences. So it's all good. This is temporary. We're not going to be here forever on this planet. It's temporary. And if we learn here, that's the point of it, basically. And, what we're learning here, is important. And it's giving us the wisdom to, move forward and make better decisions and what have you. Tammy, I should be clicking these. I realize I'm not clicking these. So I'm not, I haven't done this before, so I'm just skipping steps. Tammy M. Duncan, during this process, did you believe you were going to be okay, or did your mind have a lot of worry? The Bible says if you believe, it will come true. Well, it's interesting. This hospital thing was actually, in a weird way, probably the best that I've processed an experience like this. I believed that it was going to be okay. I really did. I felt like, well, you know what? I really don't have a choice going forward. But I also believe that, it sounds silly to somebody that thinks this is absurd, but the NDE people have experienced this, do realize, they've encountered guardian angels, spirit guides, and all these kinds of things. And I actually buy in now. I used to think that was like bizarre and kind of fantastic. And I'm like, you know what? So many people have seen them and experienced this and felt like it was a reasonable thing. And I've had different events in my life where I felt like I was carried through or spared terrible consequences of things. And I've heard of plenty of these kinds of stories. So I'm not, I actually felt confident, and I felt like everybody in my path was placed there. They were prepared, and I prayed about it, so I floated through. I didn't collapse into fear or worry at any point. And I used to freak out. Like I would get, into a real bad rabbit hole in my mind about things, because I used to play out these negative scenarios in my head. And I thought it was just sort of like naturally preparing for the worst in case it happens. I used to think it was actually a mental mechanism. Like if you play out the worst case scenario in your mind, then anything less than that is success and good. I didn't realize that by playing out negative scenarios in your mind, you're almost like manifesting them, which is risky. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just believe that all these people are going to do their best, that they're trained, they're prepared. And if I treat them well, then they won't have any motive to not treat me well, and maybe it'll be good. So I just showed appreciation. I'm like, I'm grateful these people are able to help me out. I really did not sink into any real terrible fear or depression. And in the past, I probably would have. And now I feel like, okay, I've learned enough to believe that even my thinking can help alter the outcome. So, I feel like, yeah, you can pray about things. I used to think it was all, yeah, you're praying to a God you hope's there, but you're not really sure. Well, now I feel like, yeah, I'm quite sure of the fact that I'm praying and there's somebody listening, and that there are people helping me. I mean, now I actually buy in. I feel like that's not just a theory. It used to be like, yeah, people have told me this stuff, and I'm saying, yeah, okay, but that sounds good, yeah. But I didn't know it. I kind of believed it, but I didn't know it. Now I feel like I know it. Like even now, I'm like, okay, I got carried through the situation. I didn't worry too much. That's good. Now I've just got to take it easy and believe the rest. The healing will take place, and I can move on. And like, I feel vastly relieved. Like, okay, that was a huge appreciation course. Whenever you go through some medical thing that really is terrible, or anything where you can't function normally, you're just really, really grateful for what you can get back. So, okay, let me see what else we got here. Tammy M. Okay, I'm going to start trying to show these. No, Duncan, you were playing the what if game. Definitely not a good idea. This causes anxiety, worry, negative thought. Yeah, absolutely. I used to be famous for that. Like, considering various outcomes, and yeah, the what if game, it's a rabbit hole. It's just a way down, a way to get scared and work up anxiety, which isn't helpful at all. let's see, I got one more down here. I'm a fairly rational, says Mock Mirdo Chiggle. Mirdo something like that. I'm a fairly rational person, but why not hope and believe in someone watching out for you if it doesn't hurt anyone? You don't solely rely on it. Yeah, I'm good with that. It's like, we're not usually really sure about these things. I never was sure about them. Now, I haven't had an NDE, so I don't have that actual experience that people talk from, but watching normal, regular, credible people telling what happened to them, I've watched enough of these videos on YouTube to feel, you know what? This person's actually just a real regular person that had an experience and they're just relating it. And I don't see any reason not to believe in it. And it totally resonates. A lot of this stuff resonates with me now, where before, a couple of years ago, I would have very much doubted a lot of it or think, oh, that's cool. And I'm not trying to press anybody to adopt my belief system or anything. Everybody's where they're at and has their own belief system. And I feel like, well, even the Bible says, if you search for the truth, you'll find it eventually. And I'm like, okay, I'm that guy. I just want to know. I need to know more. I don't have that kind of wisdom to really know what is true or no, it isn't. But if once it's like it gets you, as an illustration, like in a lot of video games, you have to unlock different levels. You're going through a level, and once you have learned something, it unlocks another level, and then you get to that level, and then there's more to learn from there. So it's an endless process of trying to learn more so that you can unlock more locks and figure out how to advance in life and not get pulled under. But to bounce back a tiny bit, like I'm not necessarily done yet. I was just going to say, yeah, like as far as cult recovery and going to positive motivation, it's like if we're motivated by love and we want to make other people's lives better, you reap what you sow. So if you're helping other people and doing good, it's putting your mind in a better place and it's making other people's lives better and you're encouraging them. So it's sort of an upward spiral that you're part of. Like if you're encouraging and helping other people and not grumbling and complaining and being miserable, you're contributing something good. So you're part of the, and even now, like this sounds a little funny, but I feel like there's a lot of people in the NDE movement and in general that I feel like are part of this great awakening. I think people are really starting to wake up to the fact that it's simple. Life is more simple than we realize, and that just applying the golden rule and showing kindness and expressing love is very powerful, much more than people figure, and it makes the world a better place. And I think the more people latch onto this and run with it, and even like this community is an example, the more of us that are supporting each other and helping each other out, our world is getting bigger and fuller of better people. We're getting happier. So we're bringing the general sense of love and life being good, up to a higher level, which ultimately means more of us are going to resist negative things going on in the world, like war and destruction, all this kind of crap. The more of us that want life to be hopeful and good, the more power we're going to have, and eventually, hopefully, overwhelm, the way things have been going. I feel like that's in process now. So, just deciding to be part of what's going better is going to help, and unlocking people from the prison of their own fear or their own victimhood or whatever. I feel like, love's a powerful motive, and just recovering from the whole cult abuse thing, it's hard to let go of. A lot of people still hanging on to, pain and the victimization part of it. And I feel for them. It's like they need to get out. They need to speak out about what happened, which is going on, call out people that have caused the problems so that they're exposed. Because even Jesus, and Paul or whatever, people in the Bible said, well, we need to expose the evil, expose it, turn away from it, but expose it so other people see that it's bad. Even if you're not taking up arms against these people, is expose what they're doing. The light, people are always saying the sunlight's the best disinfectant. Like once things are out on the table, people can't deny the actual truth. Truth itself has power. Truth is a very powerful force. So once the truth's out there, it's sort of like if you oppose the obvious truth and it resonates with the people that can agree with it, the truth holds power. So, it itself has the power of exposure, and then people just being able to get stuff off their chest. Like I think a lot of the good sharings that people have done, like with Marilyn and other people on YouTube and everything, just doing the lives where they get to blurt out what happened to them and let it out, lance the wound, get it out, let the truth get out, get some encouragement. Like a lot of what goes on in here is just simply encouragement. people being able to tell their story and other people saying, we're with you, man. We get it. We understand. That's connecting. That's getting the stuff out. That's letting that person heal, letting them tell their story. That's powerful stuff. So that's what we need to be doing, and then replacing the old motivation of feeling like a bad person or guilty or feeling isolated, where you got to hide what happened to you and not tell anybody. That's poisonous. That's like having poison trapped in your body. You got to be able to get it out, So once people get this crap out, I think it does a lot of good. Let me jump over to some comments here. I know Marilyn the Star and things putting them up. I'm trying to get better at not letting stuff go by. Maya, I am horrible at preparing for the worst case scenario. Yeah, you see, I started getting that same thing. And fear is the driver, because if you're afraid, you think, well, I'll overcome my fear by trying to mentally prepare myself. But then you can play out these scenarios, and then again, I had to use them as an example. My younger son had gotten in some trouble a while back, and he was all afraid they were going to grind him to powder over it. And I'm like, dude, don't borrow trouble. My mom would always tell me, don't borrow trouble, because you don't know, you might suffer for nothing. And he was going through these worst case scenarios in mind. And of course, having done that myself, I knew about it. And I'm like, dude, don't play those scenarios out in your head. They might not be so merciless to you. They might not throw the book at you. It might not happen that way. Just go in there, be polite, be respectful, and just take what comes and own what you did wrong, and just see how they deal with you. And as it were, they were actually pretty nice to him and didn't throw the book at him. And he would have suffered a lot, playing out these worst case scenarios. They didn't happen. So it would have been, suffering for absolutely no reason, like suffering as if something bad happened that didn't happen. Okay, what else do I have here? Okay. I'm a fairly Mach 1, we'll say. Sorry, I have a hard time trying to get that out. I'm a fairly rational person, but why not hope and believe in someone watching out for you? Okay, I already touched on that. Yeah, don't solely rely on it. So yeah, believe for the best. May happen, may not happen. May not be anybody on the other side, but maybe there are. And worst case, it didn't hurt you. You just avoided some bad thinking. Maya, I'm horrible at preparing for the worst case scenario. Yep, that was me. Timber, my surgeon and doctors agree that staying positive and being nice and appreciative helps everyone in this situation. Doctor stuff wise, everyone gets a boost when they know they're appreciated. Yeah, I think it does a lot. It energizes a person to want to do well. They don't feel like they're being, unappreciated at the least. Maya, yes, but I find it hard when the doctor treats you like, yeah, that can happen. I was fortunate. I mean, I've had doctors and dentists I didn't like, but fortunately, not all the time. Joel, put you up here. Next person you meet might be the most important in your life. You just never know. Kindness is important. That's true too. You don't know who that person is a lot of times. You could be walking by somebody in a supermarket and do them a favor or something like that, and you wouldn't know that you'd break down with your car the next week and they'd be the one driving by. So you never know. Stuff happens. Let me put this one up. Mark, I grew up standing on dams and strong winds and watching the sheer force of the elements. And we have this saying that this too shall blow over and declutter your mind in the process. Yeah, the storms tend to clear things out. And once they die down and the sun comes back out, then, hey, it got rid of some of the junk. And that's kind of true. Like even now, I feel like I came back from the hospital, like, okay, that whole thing can settle out. Now the storm's over. I can relax. And I just felt motivated to jump on a live stream. Like, you know what? I might as well get back in the saddle, because here I am. And, I don't want to lose momentum. If I got it in my head to do something and don't, it'll go away, and then I've lost the opportunity. Let's see what else we got. True, Joel, kindness is free. Yeah, that's the other thing. Being nice to people isn't like it's costly. All you got to do, just a word of appreciation or a smile or something can make all the difference. Timber June, Maya, yes, I've been there too. Unfortunately, it's tough when you feel like the person isn't going to help you or listen. And you do run into those kind of people. That's rough. Does happen. Joe, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it hurts you. like anger or unforgiveness or any of that kind of stuff, even though it seems justified. Because I used to have a hard time letting go of that because it seems justifiable. Like if somebody's done you wrong, then you feel like you have the right to be angry or the right to hope bad things for them or whatever. But yeah, the poison is in you at that point. And to use a silly illustration, years ago, I kind of came up with this idea. Is like I would realize I'd be angry about some situation that I couldn't rectify. Somebody ripped me off or done something. I'm like, you know what? I finally got the attitude. You know what? God's my collection agent. I'm handing the account over to God or karma or whatever you want to call it. It's like, okay, I'm going to hand this off because if I stew about it, it's hurting me. It's not hurting the other person. It's not going to guarantee they make right. I'm handing this off to my collection agent, karma, angels, God, whoever wants to take that on, and they can answer for that to the powers that be. But I got to let it go and move on in my life. There's nothing more effective I can do than that. I'll do it, and then I'm free. I'm free. And, you know, say somebody owed you $100 and they didn't pay you back. You could stew about it. You'd say, well, okay, I've already lost $100. I've asked for it back. If they don't give it back, if I just let it go and hand it to my collection agent, then I'm lost $100, but I haven't lost, you know, hundreds of hours of my time having it rent space in my head. Because why even have that? I'm like, nope, I'm just going to drop it and move on. You know, somebody else, God can work it out, and that way I'm free of the issue. The more craziness I've experienced with doctors, the more I feel comfort in preparing for the worst. It pays to be prepared for anything. I mean, it's funny, over the last year or so, I really felt like, you know, when Marilyn and I got married and got the house and everything, you know, my folks were big on setting up trusts and estates and wills and all this stuff. And we put it off for a while and we did it. We sat down with a lawyer and went through the whole thing. And then that was quite a while ago, like 15 or 20 years ago. And finally, this past year, I'm like, you know, I'm closing on 65. I really should update all this stuff. And we'd even willed some money to this cult we've been in. I'm like, we got to fix that. We can't have a cult ending up with any of our resources at this point. So I sat down, went through the will thing and the trust and kind of rewrote it and went ahead, you know, we signed and notarized the updates. And I'm like, yeah, I feel better about that. Yeah, being prepared. I don't want to stick. We had just actually gone through, my mom passed in 2021, and that was rough because my dad had passed in 2008, and we had to do the whole thing with, you know, grieving over him and making the adjustments that you make when somebody passes away. And that was my dad. So that was pretty heavy. Well, then my mom lived quite a bit longer. She was 91. And when she finally passed away, she was the one still living in the house. So we had to clean the house out, which was nightmarish, and put it on the market and sell it and get it all cleaned out and pass inspection. And that was crazy. We finally got that done and let that house go. And I felt, you know, people would think, oh, wouldn't you want to hang on to the house they grew up in? I'm like, you know, that was a past chapter. I needed to let it go. I just felt like I need to release this. You know, if we have a house, we have our own place, we have our own life. That was my past. I'm letting it go. So we let it go. But it was like, you know, that was rough, but it was sort of put me in that mindset too. When that was all over, I don't want to do this to my kids. Of course, our house, you know, I got an attic full of crap and sheds full of crap and a house full of stuff. Most of it's just not crap, but yeah, I just wanted to put paperwork and put everything in order. It's like, okay, I just want to minimize the impact of them because someday it's going to happen. I'm not going to be on this planet forever. I don't want to stick other people with things I don't have to. So anyway, that's that. Okay, I'm going to hit on a few more comments. Agreed, Joe. Holding on to anger only hurts oneself. Forgiveness and kindness is healing. It's absolutely true. Yeah. Even if people don't like, because it seems rational to say, well, unless people like repent or apologize, they don't deserve forgiveness. Well, they don't deserve forgiveness. But on the other hand, it releases you. Like if you forgive and show kindness and just say, well, they're where they're at. Maybe they're not ready to, you know, totally give, you know, change. My happiness can't be contingent on whether they change or then I'm in bondage to them. And that doesn't seem fair to me. So I'm like, nope, hand it off to my collection agent, forgive. Now, if somebody apologizes, you can forgive them. That's great because you can shake hands and make up and it's better. But sometimes you just got to let something go and just like, you know what? Okay, I can only control my side of this equation. Can't control the other side. So I'm going to forgive them because Jesus says, just forgive your enemies, love your enemies. That's pretty hard to do. But on the other hand, it releases you. You're like, I just got to let this go. God can take care of them. I've got to release my side of this deal and walk away from it. So that helps. I see some encouragement. Okay, Bonnie, good luck with your channel. Comment, what a cool license plate on your wall. Oh, thanks. Yeah, my brother, I have an older brother that used to collect license plates, and he gave me a bunch of his old porcelain plates. And when that was, I think it was 2014, I hung it on the wall in our hallway, and then I repainted the hallway. So I stole it out of there and put it in here. I have a few more like it, but they're okay. We have another comment from Mach 1 here. It's not about if the other person deserves a kindness, it's about you, if your soul deserves to be serene, being kind as a default. Yeah, I agree. You know, and sometimes forgiving people who don't deserve it actually does a kindness to them, where they might just be even more likely to maybe regret or repent of whatever they did wrong. Because sometimes you just say, look, I know you don't feel sorry about this, but I'm letting it go. I'm forgiving you. I don't want anything from you. Release them from their side of it, and then, maybe they'll think about it. Um, Prepare for the worst, hope for the best is the way I go about life. Yeah, that's smart. Pays to be prepared. Marilyn's jokes about me a lot of times is having these Armageddon stashes of food and everything. Because sometimes I'll be like, man, things can happen quickly. Like yesterday, there was a big hoodoo with AT&T with phones not working, and then we're thinking, oh, what if it's the Russians, doing something with satellites, or what if it's sunspot activity or hackers in China? It could be anything. I'm like, you know what? Be ready. Have enough food in your house to last at least a few weeks if things go down. We live on a place where I have a generator. I have a private spring water supply that's gravity fed, so I got water even if the power goes out. I got some benefits being up in the woods. I'm like, yeah, I like the idea. I got piles of wood there. If I lose heat or power over the winter, I got a wood stove. It doesn't require anything but a pile of firewood that I have plenty of. So, I like having a little bit of independence from things that might happen. Never hurts. And it just gives you a little peace of mind. Uh, Timber June, we got to deal with wills and trusts, and let me put this one up. And having family leave a lot to their church cult. Yep. Yeah. See, that would be bad. We had, when we were in the cult and believing in it, we had planned to leave them something if we all got knocked out. And I'm like, wait a second, it totally became a non-thing. Uh, Oops. Okay. I'm trying to put up another comment. LOL. Don't even get me started on too much stuff. Yeah. My mom, I mean, I wouldn't call her a hoarder. She was probably borderline. She had this house, and when my dad passed, I think what happens is she was by herself and felt less secure. So there were just mountains of, it was easier. I realized she would send people out to buy more stuff because it was either easier to do that than find what you already had. So when we cleaned the house out, I found about 5 different fully stocked medicine cabinets, and, we didn't have to buy toilet paper for 6 months. We just had so much stuff. So, oh, Marilyn's putting in one here. Okay, let me get down to it. Um, oh, wow, okay. Let me. Oh, okay, Tammy. Okay, I'm gonna try to run through these. I don't like to ignore people in the chat. I'm one of those that has very little material items. This is Tammy. I have only what I need and no more. This includes a couple of forks, spoons, knives, etc. Yeah, that's efficient. It's very efficient. It's like, okay, you're not gonna leave a lot of crap behind you. You don't have clutter around you. So there's a benefit to that minimalism. I must agree. It's less crap to deal with if you're not an accumulator. Uh, Timber June. I found out that people say I forgive and move on too easily. I say I ain't got time for that. Who knows what's going to happen in the next minute? Yeah. Yeah, some do. I mean, you got to, you don't want to let things just go if there's a lesson to be learned out of them, or you can change the situation a little bit. Um, Joel. As an auctioneer, I'm sure that we humans are gatherers. We all have more stuff than we need, but it is just stuff. We need to gather up people we care about. The other stuff's totally true. Yeah, that's one of those things. Materialism is kind of a mistake. And if we gather and accumulate more than we need, then somebody's going to be stuck with it. And we're not taking any of it with us. So my attitude is more like, if you've got stuff you don't need and somebody that could use it or whatever, pass it along, just keep it moving so that somebody else gets benefit out of it. I kind of laugh. I feel bad. You drive down the road and see these giant storage facilities everywhere, and it's like probably 3/4 of that stuff winds up being auctioned off or thrown out. You're paying to store stuff. It's better to be decisive. Like, how much of the stuff are we ever going to do anything with? If not, just sell it or get rid of it right then and there instead of paying, however much a month for 10 years and then somebody else throws it away when it's all full of mouse nests and other crap and it's broken down. That's not a practical thing. Yeah, Marilyn put in a joking one. Okay, this is funny. We have tons of chickpeas and corn. So yeah, I've got this funny thing. Like, I'll keep extra food around, and one of the things that for some reason I had accumulated a bunch of, because I was always making things like shepherd's pie, and I don't know why I like chickpeas and tuna fish and certain things that have a lot of protein that are just things I can just throw on the stove, throw some butter on there. Okay, things I could woof in 10 minutes. If I come in from a hike and I'm hungry and I don't want to make anything complicated. I mean, I'm always doing silly things like that. I wish I could downsize a bit. Yeah, I'm always trying. Things accumulate to a certain level, and there's always that day about once a month I look around and say, like right now, my office is a mess. Luckily, you can't see the rest of it because my desk's piled with a bunch of crap. But I'll deal with it. One of these days, I'll wake up motivated, and I'll be like, okay, this is the day. I just got to deal with this. Joe DeCeppo, responding to Marilyn. Chickpeas are a great source of protein that lasts a long. Yep, that's why I like them. I actually do. They taste sort of nut-like. I'll just throw butter and salt on them and wolf them. Joe McCoy, you are so wise. Yep, Joel is an older guy that knows a lot. He's been through a lot. Joe DeCeppo, I thought you called chickpeas garbanzo beans over there. I call them chickpeas. Marilyn, Dunk's mom was a classy hoarder. Kind of true. Most of the stuff she had was nice. In fact, after she passed, I made sure I wound up with some of the antiques. I love old antiques, like some of the stuff you can actually see here. The desk behind me actually was something that I got from a neighbor that moved out. But I mean, I have a lot of beautiful old antique furniture that my grandparents had and stuff, and I love it. It's just, I feel connected to good parts of my past that way, good craftsmanship, because I've been a carpenter for many years, and I really appreciate fine woodwork and that kind of thing. So that's one of the things that I would hoard if I could. But luckily, it's furniture. It's not like clutter. I use these things. Okay. Joel acknowledging Maya, thank you. Tamara June, you can make hummus, right? Well, yeah, Marilyn's made hummus plenty before. Cool. Marilyn mentioning her 14 spatulas. Yeah, we won't mention those. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, we now we have an overabundance of coffee cups because we have all kinds of SPTV coffee cups, plus all our regular coffee cups. So I've been having to store those away because now we have too many. Maya read years ago, if you haven't used an item in the past 6 months, it might be a useless item and get rid of it. Yeah, it's funny. I kind of moved that up to about 2 years because I have a lot of seasonal sports type outdoor sports equipment. If you have a bad year with no snow and you don't use some of your snowshoes, you're not going to chuck them. Maybe, the next year things will come around. Chickpeas and garbanzo beans are the same. So you need a couple more spatulas, perhaps. I think part of the light hoarding is related to the lack of resources in that generation in particular. Yeah, I think people that grew up in the Depression, which my folks did, they were born in the 20s, they kind of got onto that thing. Like, you don't want to wind up with nothing and be in a bind. So I get that. It's sort of a response to insecurity. Okay, I think I'm gonna wind down shortly, simply because I'm getting kind of uncomfortable. And I have to exit shortly for that one reason, but I thank you, everybody that signed on and has been hanging out with me. I really appreciate it, and I hope to do more of these and eventually interview some people that have had NDEs and such. But I kind of felt like I wanted to jump in and just do something that wasn't NDE related, because that's kind of a narrow thing to discuss, and I find it fascinating. Anybody that wants to watch any of my clunky videos where I just sort of express what I was thinking and finding out on my channel, feel free to do that and give me feedback on that. I would like to get on and do another stream soon, and this has been fun for me. I hope for you as well. I hope nobody's bored. I'm going to just run this chat really quick so that I get out of here before I'm really uncomfortable. Difficult to own more things without having more attachments to them. Yeah, I'm very sentimental. I love the old furniture. I love a lot of the old antiques that my grandparents and my parents had because I feel connected to my past, kind of a good way with that. It's just sort of a security thing. Seems funny, but it's just the way I am. You know, there's a lot of things I have that are just things that don't matter. So I can get rid of money much more easily than things because things have more of a history to them. They kind of make you feel more connected. Um, Marilyn Timber, yes, to forget what she said. That okay. Maya, you're wise too. Well, thank you. We try to be. Us old goats got to have something to rely on. Can't get this old and not have learned anything. That would be really bad management of our time. Mock, I'm totally not eating lentils with butter right now for the protein. There you go. Yeah, protein, good stuff. Um, My Tamiya, no, 6 months is way too short. Yeah, I agree. At least you got a whole year because seasons change up here. If you live somewhere where the seasons don't change, um, might not matter. Joel Duncan, you did great. Take care of yourself. Thank you, Joel. I really appreciate your presence here, and I hope to see you again soon. Okay, I think I'm caught up here. What do I have? Maya, thanks. Great live, Duncan. Fierce Eagle flying semi solo, Maryland. Keeping an eye on things. Yeah, so thank you very much. I really appreciate your being here and giving me the opportunity to kind of get a first run at this. And I will see you again soon. So till then, take care.